You're watching the Prepared Mind Network, so get prepared for one hell of a show.
Fake carrots. Fake fruit. Fake. Fake. Fake grapefruits. Fake. Liar! You liar!
Well, everyone. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is another wacky freaking Wednesday, I tell you. Wacky Wednesday. Biden came out today and was stumbling over his words, said that they need to accelerate climate change. And then the media and the White House staff, no. What he meant is they need to accelerate their program to combat it. And it's like, oh, no, but that's not what he says. In fact, he's constantly saying things. Either that, he's either an incompetent, bumbling boob, check, or he's a liar, check. Good golly. I mean, don't we have artificial intelligence, AI? Don't we have that? How come they haven't turned all of the data from the climatologists that they've collected over the years, as well as all of their reports from every scientist around the world, and asked them, the AI computers, about climate change, and ask the AI computers, is there a crisis? Is it accelerating? Should we be worried? And I'm sure when they put in all of the data that the world has gotten very cold and frozen over, and then it's thawed and melted, and then it's frozen, then it's thawed, then it's frozen, right? And then maybe the computer model will say what the actual truth is. Well, I'm so tired of this argument. Climate change. They're pushing it on us, whether we like it or not. They've been pushing it for almost 30 freaking years. In fact, my whole life has been riddled with, we're going into an ice age. It's global warming. They've just settled with climate crisis. So whether it's hot or cold, whether someone feels chilly or a little too warm, they get to say, well, that's part of the crisis. Wow. So there's an article from Euronews.com that asks the question, did 1,200 climate experts sign a declaration denying a climate emergency? Well, they signed it, but they fact-checked it and said, no, this is a conspiracy theory. Once again, to say that facts are a conspiracy theory, or the opinions of one group of scientists is a conspiracy theory because another group disagrees with them. This is where we get into trouble. In fact, I've got this article here. Which is from ntd.com. And it says, first of all, it's from August 29th, 2023. Not too long ago. Over 1,600 scientists sign a, quote, no climate emergency, end quote, declaration. That's right. Over 1,600. Now, could it be that these 1,600 scientists are not getting paid by mega corporations, by energy companies, by the government? Are they not being paid to lie? It's actually 1,609. They didn't go and say, when we get to 1,600, just tell all the other ones go away. It was signed by 1,609. So it's not a group, of radical, conspiratorial, right-wing scientists who barely have a degree in climatology. No, it's 1,609, with 321 of those coming from, that's right, the United States of America. So this coalition of experts who have degrees in climate scientists or climate science, they point out that Earth's climate, as long as it has existed, has warm places and cold places and warm phases and cold phases. And there was this thing called the Little Ice Age. And it's argued that it lasted from about 1200 to about 1850. Other scientists I know say it lasted till 1900. But it was literally called the, quote, Little Ice Age because things got cold. For example, there was a glacier in the Alps that started to grow and come down the Alps and was going to crush a small village. And back then, their climatologists came out. They were called Catholic priests. And they thought that the glacier was controlled by the devil. And so they exorcised, splashed holy water, said prayers, and you guessed it, it retreated. So those were the experts back then. Priests knew how to take care of the climate crisis. Do you know what Biden is proposing right now? Well, let's see. If we have a deficit problem, we need to hire 87,000 more federal IRS agents. Well, with this climate crisis, he wants to hire an army, a climate army of 20,000 troops who will, well, run around and do stuff that's going to save the planet, don't you know? How do you battle climate crisis, folks? I mean, if 20,000 is good, why not hire 200,000 for the climate army? Hell, we have Space Force. Why not the climate force? I tell you, folks, I tell you, these people are whacked out of their fucking brains. The worst part is they have the power, they have the authority, they have the badges, they have the government vehicles, and they're going to drive around, tax us, arrest us, and, well, make us pay for it all. Until we can no longer pay for it all. So that's our idiotic government here in the United States of America. What is going on around the world? And oh, by the way, 30 minutes into this monologue, it'll be your chance to ask questions. So go ahead and get your questions into the comment section for Mr. Ooman to collect for you. Now, I'm going to take you around the world to another idiotic nation. It's called Ukraine. And they have a spokes freak who is an American soldier. And, well, it's not just an American soldier. And I spoke about this freak several days ago. It's a transgender named Sarah Ashton Cirillo. Well, she talked a bunch of shit, talked about Russian propagandists, threatened them, said they'd be killing them, and it'll be great. All this tough talk out of a failed male of the species who has hormone-induced breasts on his chest and a moppish-looking wig on its head. And was wearing like these olive drab dungarees clothing to look militant, about as militant as Voldemort Zelensky looks in his little green woolly pulley sweaters. And speaking of Voldemort Zelensky, today Mark Dice's video that he came out with, he called him Voldemort Zelensky. How about throwing a man a bone here, Mark? I've been calling him Voldemort for how many months now? Anyone? At least 6, maybe 8, maybe 10. I don't fucking know. Anyways, Voldemort Zelensky is a fruitcake. And so hiring Sarah Ashton Cirillo, a penis-having, breast-having weirdo, as their spokesman has flopped. That's right, folks. All the tough talk. Failure. Absolute failure. What am I talking about? Well, all the tough talk got blowback big time. This person is suspended, or if you will, fired. And they're under investigation for issuing death threats against Russian propagandists. So I'm calling this person, Sarah Ashton, the failed Tokyo cockhole tranny propagandist. And that's right, the Tokyo cuckhole versus the versus Tokyo Rose. So Tokyo cockhole, and you just got to laugh. Okay, thank you, Mr. Uman. You have to laugh at them all, folks. The transgenderless people, we need to remember this. They are violent. They have violent language, they have violent thoughts, and they commit violent acts. They constantly make death threats. So should we be surprised that if an army trans person was sent over there to be the English-speaking spokesperson in Ukraine, started making death threats, should we be surprised? Or should we expect more? Right? But I had this big question. If this Tokyo cockhole was the military spokesman or spokeswoman or spokesfruitcake, was fired for unapproved statements, I want to know who approved the threats that were made. Who approved what this thing said? Or does Ukraine just allow any LGB idiot to speak on its behalf? The way Zelensky speaks on his own behalf for everyone. And don't forget, he's an LGB fruitcake also. But he's being shot down here over in America. But he's threatening, and I want to bring this up, and I think it's very important. This was important. Let me find it here. Nope. Voldemort Zelensky has essentially threatened the United States. They want $24 more billion. And Biden wants to give it to them, even though they're failing, even though nobody wants it. Why? It could be extortion, folks. Extortion. Zelensky could be letting them know, hey, look, I'll roll over, which I'm sure he makes a habit of. I bet he's going to roll over and spill the beans on the Bidens, who right now are incredibly hot water. Oh, it's going to get nasty, folks. It is. Just wait. I mean, there's so much going on. This great grain conspiracy, I made an error on yesterday when I reported, saying that countries in Europe don't want to pay high prices for grain coming out of Ukraine because they may feel like they're obligated. It goes quite the other way. Quite the other way. The Polish President Duda, and there's a great name for you, said that Ukraine should, quote, remember the help. And they compared, Polish President Duda compared Kiev to, quote, a drowning person. And the country of Croatia is probably going to join and ban Ukrainian produce, grains. So the error I made was not that they're overpriced, but that they're underpriced. And they're going to undercut the farmers throughout Europe. Quite an interesting story. So where do they normally sell their grain? Internationally to other places, but they're trying to shove it down everyone's throats. Could it be that they can't send their grain out through the Black Sea? That there's a problem there because of the war with Russia? So they're dumping their cheap grain all over Europe, or trying to, which will screw up the rest of the countries. Oh, we just love globalism, right? We just love globalism. Well, we can see how it hurts. And it's going to hurt a whole lot worse, folks. It's coming. What is on your mind? What do you want to talk about? I want to bring this up. I know a lot of people are having problems with these illegal immigrants coming across the border. It is affecting all of us. Now, in Texas, the city of Eagle Pass, they have issued an emergency declaration because they are seeing a never-ending line, quote, never-ending line. It's men from Venezuela. They've all been taken to the border by train. And they're also military aged. Folks, this is a civilian, a civil, and a military issue at our border. Whoever paid these people to come, whoever sent them and paid their way, should be declared an enemy of the state, an enemy of our nation for doing this. and they're just dumping them. Yesterday, Chin Music shared videos with Uman and the Prepared Mind of people just pouring across the border, getting processed, and then given bus tickets, and they're being driven to airports where they can just travel the country. I mean, it's so hard to imagine how hard it would be to be a Mexican or a Guatemalan or a Honduran or a Nicaraguan or a Panamanian and know that if you can just make it to the border, you get a free meal ticket, you're on paid vacation in America. Paid vacation in America. It's a crazy scene. And to finish up what I want to say about the illegals being here is in New York, they're now protesting. They're blocking the buses that are full of illegal aliens being bussed in. And where are they bussing them into? A nursing home. Well, 10 Americans have been arrested for protesting. People are screaming, "You're not welcome, get the fuck out," et cetera, et cetera. And the mayor of New York, who himself has been complaining lately about these Democrat policies resulting in New York being overwhelmed, he calls this protest a, quote, ugly display. How fucking interesting is this? During 2020, violating city ordinance and state, shall we say, rules regarding highways and roadways, they painted BLM shit all over the roads in New York City, with the mayor even helping. They burned businesses, they pillaged, they looted. I don't remember hearing Mr. Eric Adams, who wasn't mayor, call that an ugly display. They said it was protesting, and it was completely justifiable because, you know, a multiple time felon, who was in the act of committing yet another felony while high off his ass on fentanyl, was being arrested. He died. Who knows what felonies this guy committed? St. George Floyd. Who knows what felonies he committed that he didn't get caught for? And so let's burn the nation down. But this was an ugly display. So Biden, the Democrat Party, Eric Adams, Prickster, Gavin Newsom, and every other Democrat Party fuck up around the country, they want their socialist policies. But when the people who are affected by it finally realize the damage that's being done, and they call for the problem to be fixed, but they can't stop it because mayors, governors, and even the president, you know, they won't stop what they're doing. They're going to keep bringing in these illegals. The people are called ugly for it. So they're going to use personal slander, pejorative phrases, and they're going to shame the people because that's going to fix Mayor Adams' failures. You want to fix this? Send them to Washington, D.C. Send them to the White House and dump them on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Dump them at Kamala Harris's home. Dump them at Martha's Vineyard. Dump them in the rich neighborhoods. That's what they ought to do. Folks, this is an absolutely filthy crime being committed against us. In Italy, they've got a small island, and this is what Salvini was talking about in Italy. He was saying, hey, you're dumping another 6,000 military-aged people from another third world shithole on an island off of Italy. It's an Italian island where there's like less than 2,000 Italians living. They're just going to dump it and bury them in these people. How are they supposed to live? How can they defend themselves if these people go wacko? They're like locusts eating off of everyone else. They're like I can't give enough ways, right? So in Italy, Salvini, and now in France, Marine Le Pen, they've decided to join forces against this mass migration. ahead of the European Union elections next year, do you think they're going to make a hill of beans a big difference at all? I doubt it. The people are tired of this shit. I think the people of Europe are tired of, well, being raped economically, and also I think the women are tired of being physically raped by all of these third world scumhole people. They're coming, folks. They're not quitting. They are like locusts. They're parasites. And who's letting them in? The richest amongst us, the elite leadership class. They're elite, all right, folks. Somehow they think they're going to not be affected by this. I guess the same way in third world shitholes, the rich that live there are not bothered by the poor because they just kill the poor if they're ever bothered. So the poor, they stave off anyone trying to become, well, middle class. Anyways, here we go. Right? All right. Let me move on here, if I shall. Charlie Kirk wanted to, he's a conservative activist. In other words, he wants America to have its liberties, its freedoms. He wants our rights respected. He was going to speak at Northern Arizona University. And he was met by social justice warriors who were there to curse, cuss, insult, and basically swarm him. And they screamed things like, fuck you, fascist, and trans lives matter. It's time, folks, to shout back. If yelling obscenities really works for the left, then why should we feel bad about it? If they want to shout insults by calling people like Charlie Kirk or you fascists and Nazis and murderers and slave owners and blah, 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 then perhaps we need to shout them down. They are rude, folks. They are offensive. They are actually violent baby killers. They are thieves, socialist thieves, and they are, of course, liars and hypocrites as well. We need to call them, right, fruitcakes. We need to tell them to go away. We need to say, fuck you, Marxists. We need to speak up and fight back. Period. I don't think there's any way to get through to these people. They're not going to learn. I'm not saying go out and fight. I'm not saying and encouraging violent or harmful or dangerous behavior. I'm just saying we need to protest as well. And like I said, the people at the top, these rich fucks, they're not quitting and they're not going away. Do you remember New Zealand during the 2020 lockdowns? It was led by a former, was she Canadian or American, who moved to New Zealand and then was elected to be their prime minister. Her name was Jacinda Ardern. And she's in a contest with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to see who can eat the most corn off the cob through a picket fence. I mean, she's just a freaky looking chick. But, looks aren't everything, right? But you can typically spot a wild-eyed, feral Democrat when you see him. Right? Remember, this is the woman who would not allow people to travel. You weren't allowed to be free. In fact, under her rules, someone was arrested for smuggling Kentucky Fried Chicken from one district to another. You weren't allowed to do anything except, have orgies. That's right. Don't forget that Jacinda Ardern made it okay to have orgies during the lockdown. We don't want to take that away from I don't know who. I guess the monkeypox butt pirates were allowed to have orgies, and other people that fit her political profile. But she has gone to the UN along with Voldemort Zelensky and says that she wants to find new ways to to silence opposition. They want to protect free speech by silencing free speech. So the best take on this shit that I found, that I kind of searched around, came from Gateway Pundit. Yep. And so former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, went to the UN General Assembly right? And she is, folks, she's famous. The people in that country hate her. I think she resigned finally because she, cracked down, made everything for individuals illegal, except attending an orgy, as I said. And she said she wants to silence everyone for the collective good. The collective good. She wants to silence everyone and call everything misinformation and disinformation that she or her people disagree with. And she's proposing this to the United Nations, who, as an organization itself, has recently come up with its silence is golden, And it's funny, who really benefits from silence and censorship? Only the government benefits, folks, and billionaires. Only government and billionaires benefit from this. So is it any wonder that that's exactly what they're demanding? The lawlessness everywhere, folks, it's getting out of hand. Now, I spoke the other day about, I called him Pee Wee Castro, right? Canada's fruitcake in charge, Justin Trudeau. Well, he started a pissing match with Modi, leader of India. And Modi scolded him, and he scalded his ass too a bit, and made fun of him, put him down, insulted him, basically bitch slapped him. Anyways, India has now expelled all the diplomats from Canada. And Canada has now expelled all the diplomats from India. So the countries are escalating against one another. Why? Because there was an assassination of a Sikh separatist. So this is quite interesting. Aren't we supposed to let people from all these, third world countries in? Well, now they're making India an enemy, folks. Pee Wee Castro wants an enemy to fight. So he's decided to go after India. And India says, well, fuck you, then we're going to mirror the effort. What do you think of that, folks? Why would Canada screw with India? India doesn't need Canada. They don't need their oil anymore because now that they're opening up Iran and the rest of the world, India is going to get their energy somewhere else. They don't need Canada. Canada grows some grain, do they not? A lot of grain in Canada. God bless Canada. We got to love them. But I think India can probably get their grain from Ukraine or Russia if they want it. Probably cheaper, too. We've got the makings, folks, of World War. Do not forget that India is part of the BRICS alliance, which now is officially much, much larger. But Brazil, Russia, China, and India were the first countries to join together and say, you know what, we need to protect ourselves from the West. And Canada is part of the West, folks. It's part of the West. And it's just the lack of apparent intellectual understanding of cooperation, mutual beneficial relationships, real long-term planning. None of this seems to matter to these people in charge. It's just they put their head down and they attack. For example, I'm going to just bring it down to something that's all in front of us. Merrick Garland, right? Merrick Garlic Buttlick Garland, the Attorney General for the government of Washington, D.C. He was called to Congress. And instead of offering answers to questions at a hearing, he decided he was going to lecture everyone on the Holocaust in defense of his policies to persecute, indict, and imprison the political opponents of Joe Biden and this globalist socialist movement. So understand, he was being honest, folks. Oh, yeah, those Nazis were really bad, so it's okay to go after them. See, you go after Nazis, you go after the bad guys, right? and it's justifiable. Whether a crime has been committed or not, you have to go after the Nazis. Whether or not damage has occurred, you have to go after them because of the Nazis. So they conclude that we're bad. We, meaning Trump, Trump's supporters, Trump's allies, Trump's cabinet, Trump donators. And even if you just marginally think Trump is, well, way better than the Democrats, so you're still evil, right? We should be locked up. We should be prosecuted. They conclude all of this with no trial, no information. There's no crime has been committed, yet they just say Nazis and they come after us. At the same time, folks, with the same mouths, they speak glowing words about Zelensky, who actually has a military comprised of neo-Nazis who have taken up the Third Reich's emblems of fascism. The Iron Cross, the swastika, and they are a genocidal bunch of maniacs. But Merrick Garland doesn't see that. Or if he does, he doesn't care. He dismisses it. What he cares about is taking power and control in this country. This is who the Attorney General of this country is right now, folks, at the national level. This is what you and I face. I'm not afraid of him. I really wish I could meet someone like Merrick Garland in person, or James Comey. I would really love to meet Eric Holder. I would even love to meet Barack Obama and just have a talk with them and ask them questions like, do you really believe the shit you say? Are you fucking serious? I would ask them those questions. I would really love it. All right, let's do this. Looks like, well, my 30 minutes is up. I need to move on to you guys. We need to have the inner circle. So let's get it on. Woohoo! All right, Mr. Ooman. I know we got a lot up on the board. Let's see if I can get through it. And we'll start with name redacted. He says, no one but me seems to notice that India is infiltrating governments with their steeped in Marxist ideas. Here, especially. Oh, I've noticed. One of the primary ones was that ridiculous broad up in Seattle who opened up City Hall to allow the Marxist Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone communist scumbags to break in, enter the building, and take over. She was an India transplant. And then we got the dumbass, another elected fucking Marxist hench bitch up in Minnesota. She wanted to disband the police, defund the police. And she's the one who had her car carjacked the other day. She was beaten very badly, sent to the hospital, busted up, stupid bitch. I can't even pronounce her name, most likely from India. It's not just no one but you name redacted, but we have to be very careful because you can't say people from other countries, especially Pakistan and Afghanistan and India, right? They're a protected class. The same way idiots from Somalia and other African shithole nations, we can't talk bad about them. And we can't talk bad about all of the scumbags pouring across our border, coming through Mexico from Central American shitholes like Honduras and Nicaragua and Guatemala, Costa Rica. Folks, there's great people that live there in all those countries from Mexico south. And then there's scumbags. If they've got houses and jobs and careers and cars and they're educated and they're good people, they're staying in their countries. So who is it that flees Central and South American countries? Who is it that leaves African nations? Who is it that leaves the Middle East to infiltrate America and Europe? It is the unwashed masses who have no real value as far as being employable and model citizens. I'm following you, name redacted. I get it. There's more than just you, brother, but it does feel like we're all alone, and I get it. Thank you much. Ooh, man, who do we got next? We got Rock Valley Ready checking in. He says, ever wonder how the debt went up in a short period of time? Besides the $100 billion to Ukraine, but the cost to house, healthcare, food, plane, and bus tickets for illegal immigrants. Well, I tell you what, man. One of the tricks to the national debt is to always spend more than you take in. And now we have something that is mind-bending and crushing. I know that the immigrants are costing us money. I know that sending money to Ukraine is costing us money. But the amount of money this country is now spending on the military, and it's not on the men and women and tranny fruitcakes that are in the military. It's the military industrial contractors who are making, $80 million planes. They get, that auto eject the pilot or can't fly right, so pilots eject, or maybe they get shot down with a 50 caliber BMG. Right, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories as to what happened, but what we know is we lost 80 million. Do you know how much money went into developing just that plane alone? There's many planes that we never get to see that they've spent money on. How about the space program? I remember under Trump hearing about the Space Force. How much money do they get? There is a black budget in the military also, folks. In addition to everything we see, there are copious, nauseating amounts of money that are spent that we're not even allowed to see where it goes or, in fact, how much it truly is. But pile on top of that, if the country now goes from having, the government financing its debt at 1%, as the bank raises its interest rate, what do you think? All the money that the U.S. government borrows to give to these immigrants, to give to other countries, to pay for all of these programs they have, not to mention disability handout to people who shouldn't be on disability, while they screw over veterans and make sure they don't get taken care of. How much interest is the government now going to pay on money it borrowed that it didn't have? If we go from 1% up to 5% or 6% or 7% interest, what's the government going to pay? Right. So instead of being able to pay, half of the debt that it incurs every year, maybe the U.S. government's not going to be able to pay even a fourth or a tenth. Right. So I do not wonder how the debt went up in a short period of time. It's kind of like they call it a hockey stick. The debt slowly rose, and then since 2000, it shot up almost vertically. This is what happens in a fiat money system. They fail. Right now in Argentina, right, we're paying 10%, shall we say, inflation? In Argentina, did you know that it's 10% per month, not per annum, 10% a month? Their money is failing. It's not Argentina's first shot at this either, folks. Argentina has tried and failed different forms of socialism for 50, 60, 70 years. They keep trying it because, if you keep trying something that doesn't work, it's bound to work at some point, or you just commit a completely insane move. I spoke with someone this morning who's very young, who has accrued a lot of college debt, and I wanted to have an intelligent conversation with him, and I was fortunate enough to have that. And the reason the young people out here want Bernie Sanders or want some of these other Democrats like Joe Biden, who wants to dismiss their student debt, is not because they don't believe in freedom. It's because they believe that they need help, that they're being cheated, that they're being screwed over. And it's like, welcome to the party. Yes, real wages. And I had a discussion and brought up real wages with this person and said, do you know what real wages are? Well, it's not just your life. Since the late 80s, the amount of inflation versus the amount of wage increase has been a losing battle for all of us. I said, for that old guy over there, for me in my 50s, and you in your late 20s, we're all getting screwed. But, I managed to make a good run at it in my life. There's no free lunch, but they believe that these politicians can cure everything, solve it. I said, well, if you take all that debt, how do you get rid of it? It goes from one part of the balance sheet to another. And then instead of you paying it back, it goes on the national debt, and we all have to pay it back. So what you're doing is you're asking everyone to pay your bills for you. You don't just wash the debt away. Unless we want to do something like this. Tell the Federal Reserve, go fuck yourself. We don't need you or your money anymore. All US dollars or Federal Reserve notes are now defunct. All debts are cleared. At the same time, I guess everyone who has millions and millions of dollars, Federal Reserve notes, those are now wiped out too. So once again, those who save are punished. Those who are debt-free are punished. Those who are responsible are punished. And those who are carefree get away with it, which would include also the U.S. government, Congress, and all the presidents who incurred all that debt, added it up, and then said, fuck it. But what choice are we going to have, folks? It's something. At some point, we're all going to have to pay. Anyways, Rock Valley Ready, great topic. Look what you led to in the discussion. And then Chin Music, he says, hey, John, the head of Trade Genius, said he heard one top economist with a good track record say that after a small pullback, we could see oil at $200 a barrel early next year. Trade Genius, folks, is there's just so many people out there trying to make money off of the markets. If I had both, I would need money to invest in oil long term. I see oil going nuts because Joe Biden has killed domestic production, killed domestic exploration, and he's killed foreign relationships that the United States government, on behalf of the United States of America, has been charged with maintaining with Saudi Arabia, with the United Arab Emirates, with other oil-producing nations, and they burned bridges and pissed everyone off. While it's humorous to note that Mohammed bin Salman, probably the most respected Arab prince of the Middle East, when he dissed Biden, when he basically humiliated him globally, I knew it was over right there and that this shit was going to start. Here we are. Hey, thanks, Chin Music. That's right, folks. Everyone get ready. I guess, ting, 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 we just might see that $10 a gallon gas. Thanks, Biden. Biden did this. Get your Biden did this stickers out now. Get them out. All right, Ooman, where are we going? Ooman says this. I also saw somewhere in Great Britain, that would be England to you and I, they are dropping the speed limit in all residential areas to 20 miles per hour to save an estimated 6 to 10 lives a year. Oh, you bet. 6 to 10 lives. If we could just save one life, why don't they just outlaw cars altogether? And look how many people won't die every year. There'll be no more auto accidents, right? And so Charles Gentry's response is, yeah, punish everyone for 6 to 10 dumbasses. Makes perfect sense. Yeah, so the people who have been killed, whether they're adults or children, probably ran out into the street not paying attention. Or in these residential areas, could the person who was in the car that ran over a pedestrian, could they have been doing 60 or 70 miles an hour? Already violating posted speed limits, and that's why people were run over? See, people who are doing that, violating the speed limit flagrantly, just dropping it to 20 isn't going to make it any safer. So instead of 40, it's 20. Well, instead of 40, they were already doing 60 or 70 or 80. So what the fuck is the difference? All it's going to do is piss people off. But hey, maybe it'll increase people's fuel economy and we can save the world that way, the way Jimmy Carter did when they made a national speed limit and they dropped it down to 55 miles an hour. Yep, we're going to save. That's how they tried saving the planet in the 70s, folks, by dropping the speed limit from 70 or 65 miles an hour down to 55 and capped it there. It just pissed everyone off. But that's what Democrats do. That's what governments do. I lived through the 70s as a child, my first 10 years of life. Well, I'm probably up to the first 14 years of my life were affected by the policies of getting off the gold standard, moving on to a fiat dollar, fucking around with the price of energy, oil, gas, and also destroying everybody by just killing savings, killing everything with their they jacked everything up, folks. They're doing it again. My recommendation is get prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Fucking learn what the hell's going on and prepare yourself for hard times ahead. Okay, thank you, Mr. Uman. We got Chin Music back. He says, they will be in the migrant center near my house tonight or tomorrow. We are really getting sick of this shit. They walk all over town with backpacks and phones. Oh, you bet. And undoubtedly, those phones were given to them by the government. Undoubtedly, they've got money in their pocket, EBT or credit cards, if you will, that the government gave them while we bust our asses working, paying taxes, putting up with regulatory nonsense, horseshit, and our rights being violated. If these people come from nowhere with no skills, no education, nothing to offer this country except an empty stomach, it's killer. So the government's giving all this money away. And what are these illegals doing, my friends? They're spending that money. How many billions of dollars are they spending into the retail economy? And the retail economy is still hurting, folks, with the government doing a form of quantitative easing. Think of it as quantitative easing, giving away money to be spent into the economy, to spur the economy. And it's not working. It is, however, pissing off everyone. And I'm, in a way, Chin Music, I'm glad you're there. Not because I want you hurt or pissed or suffering, but because you, through your efforts, are helping other people understand what is going on. Watching illegals pour through the gates, get processed, and then turn loose in America. Wow. And then they're all over the town. I used to, folks, when I lived in extreme Northern California, I would get pissed off on Sundays. Now, the people that were there that pissed me off were migrants, but they were migrant workers who worked in agriculture. And it still pissed me off because they would flood the local stores. But they wore their Sunday best. And I thought, that's great. They're all dressed up nice and they're out in the town and they're walking around. And it didn't look like they were spending any money, but I thought, they're here, they're making money off of us. And it's just like there's that many of them. It's just it. But now they're coming across the border and they aren't working. They're just consuming everything like locusts, parasites. Whew. Anyways, Chin, only you can prevent forest fires. Only you can do what's right for you, man. I wish there was a safe place to go. My family, since the early 1700s, fled a fucked up Bavaria. They made it to Pennsylvania. Then they fled Pennsylvania a decade or so after the Revolutionary War and started working their way into Ohio and then west and eventually made it to California by the late 1800s. And I'll tell you what, there's nowhere left to go. there's nowhere to run. There's no frontier. There's no freedom left. We're now stuck where we're at. Choose your battlefield where you live, because that is your battlefield. Where you live is your battlefield. All right, let's move on if we shall. I'm trying to go fast, Mr. Ooman. We got James Nicholson checking in. He says, evening all, and hey, John, if we're going to dump the illegals, we should dump them in Ukraine. I bet they would stop migrating. You know what? That's actually a great fucking idea. If we want to stop the Russians, okay, thank you very much, you man. If we want to stop the Russians, let's send illegals over to Ukraine and say, well, if you want to live in the civilized world, then you need to earn your citizenship by fighting for the country in which you'll live. How many of them would want to do that? You get to go fight the Russian machine. I think Europe should do that. They ought to send every POS, North African, Middle Eastern, immigrating son of a bitch, put a rifle in their hands and send them right towards Russia and say, you're going to defeat Russia and get them out of Eastern Ukraine, formerly Eastern Ukraine, in order to get citizenship. Now, why would I say such a thing? Knowing that they're going to go there and be slaughtered, killed, annihilated by the Russians, because that is exactly what is happening to the Ukraine people. For the benefit of wealthy billionaires and businessmen from the World Economic Forum, American and European politicians who are investing money in Ukraine, who are sending their money to Ukraine so that they get their kickback, right? Their 10%. They're all enriching themselves on the backs of European Ukrainians who are now being slaughtered in order to keep this war active. That's what's happening, folks. That's how dirty this is. We want to talk about fucking dirty. This is pretty damn dirty. All right, let's do it again. I got, I think, one more, and then I'll wrap the show up with some comments and thoughts of my own. Name Redacted says, hey, the climate force sounds like a version of the service force Obama wanted. As big, as well as funded as the military. Yeah. Obama. Barack Hussein, who went by the moniker Barry Soetoro. Is he the only president who had a fake name? Cocaine addict, fruit cake, fruit salad, fruit, who the hell knows what kind of fruit he is, other than a Marxist POS. Folks, Barack Obama did exactly what he said he was going to do. He fundamentally changed America. Look around. Fruitcake's running the schools, fruitcake's running the military, fruitcake's running Congress, fruitcake's owning and controlling Washington, D.C., and dictating to us how we're going to live. Fuck them. Anyways, Obama, that guy, he wanted a civilian police force. He wanted to replace police with his citizens community groups. Remember that? And it needed to be as big and as well funded as the military, as Name Redacted has pointed out. You bet. That's how big it needed to be. As big as the military, as well funded. As well funded. Fuck, the military gets over $1 trillion a year. And that's just what we know about. So yeah, Biden's climate force. What are they going to do? Are they going to walk through the forests and pick up garbage? Are they going to walk through the forest and are they going to plant solar panel trees? Seriously, what are these people going to do? Remember when we had this huge thing called the Great Recession under Obama? So his answer was to use the term shovel-ready jobs. It made it sound great. People are going to go to work. Have you ever seen anyone in the last year, the last 5 years, using a fucking shovel for work? Now, I will admit that because of my job, I see people with shovels from time to time. In my construction job, that is. But it's pretty rare that human beings use a shovel to work. So when Obama had shovel-ready jobs, what the fuck was he talking about? We're gonna have all this money put aside to help out and put people back to work. People don't want to work with a shovel. And they didn't. And there were no fucking jobs. It was all a lie. It was a bunch of delusional, plastic banana, good time bullshit coming out of the Democrats. And that's what we get. Yep. The climate force. Let's just call it that. I like my name for it better than Obama or I'm sorry, Biden's. Yeah, I tell you. We've got these ding-dongs, these radical ding-dongs all over the place. And they're not going to go away. They freak out. They melt down. They get triggered over anything and everything, which is why I think we need to address them very loudly, very clearly. And since there's more sane people in the country than not, we need to realize that we are the power, that it is our country, not these fucking idiots out here. I mean, I don't know if you caught the article the other day, but the ridiculous broad was on a plane and she started fighting with other passengers and she got way out of hand. She ultimately ended up getting kicked off the plane, but she screamed at people, "I'm Instagram famous, you fucking bum." Talk about an entitled influencer. Yeah, she got kicked off the plane, folks. You know, I'm world famous in Shasta County, California, so everyone can kiss my ass because I'm world famous in a small town. These people all think they matter in a way, in a fashion, and agree that they don't. But the way I want to kind of present this is just because someone thinks they're famous or powerful or influential, they think that your rights don't matter. What's the difference between this Instagram idiot that got kicked off a plane and the governor of California, Gavin Newsom? What's the difference? There is really none. They're both flawed human beings that think they're superior to others. Anyone could step up and do the job that Gavin Newsom is doing. Anyone could. They could do exactly what Governor Newsom does because Governor Newsom does what he's told. He is a puppet. He's a puppet. Lawyers tell him what to do. Democrat lawyers, Democrat strategists who are all interconnected, working with one another in every state, in every county, in every city, and in Washington, D.C., combined with every country and government in Europe and around the world that wants to participate in this globalist, woke bullshit takeover. This is where we're at. Do you see a happy ending for me and you in it? I tell you. These people are truly delusional, but they are the same. So when you see a Karen in a store, when we have a mask lockdown, when they lock everyone down and tell everyone to mask up, and a Karen starts yelling at you because you won't wear a mask, that person could be mayor. That person could be governor. That person could be in the U.S. Senate or even the president with that attitude. And they're no more important. Joe Biden truly is no more important than anyone. In fact, I think he is a more flawed human than anyone else. Therefore, he should have less authority, less power, less say in everything. But these people are that fucked in the head. They're that truly delusional. Let me give you an example here as we get to the end of the show. There is a writer out there, and this is absolutely incredible. A writer meaning someone who writes. Now, that makes them important, does it not? Right. This guy's name is Michael Tomasky. Michael Tomasky appeared on television. And he looks like a douchebag liberal writer, and he is. He is the editor of The New Republic. How about the Constitutional Republic? Oh, by the way, Joe Biden says that Trump and Republicans are trying to destroy democracy. But this Tomasky idiot had this to say, folks. He had this to say. He said that the mainstream media is not partisan. That the mainstream media doesn't give Biden enough credit. And that the mainstream media is being far too fair to Mr. Trump. So I want to ask this question, is what clown planet are we on? Literally, that someone can just come out and make these statements which are so clearly in opposition to you and I and anyone who loves freedom and liberty. It's amazing, though, that he castigates, he puts down mainstream media for not being screwy enough. That's how delusional they are. He says the media isn't partisan, but that they don't give Biden credit, and that they're too nice to Trump, meaning we need to do more to destroy Trump and you, meaning that we need to worship Biden, and that we need to just back off and let mainstream media do what it needs to do to get the job done. Folks, get ready. There is going to be partisan conflict. There might be civil war, and there's certainly going to be one hell of a fight to be had. And it's going to cost everyone. I sure hope you are prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, and a plan. Because chance favors the prepared mind. Semper Fi and Godspeed.